Hello and welcome to Sunday Politics right here on Channels Television. We're broadcasting live from our global headquarters in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. As always, the weekend was quite a busy one, given what had played out as far as the elections in Anambra State is concerned. And that's going to be a major focus on the program. And there are a couple of other things happening at the national level. Well, the reaction to the threat of an invasion by the U.S. military to come take a sweep at the terrorists in Nigeria, given their allegation of Christian genocide, is still generating a lot of concern and reaction for and against. And so it looks like that particular statement by former President Trump has actually now made everybody to kind of sit up. So on one hand, there are people that are saying, everybody knows how it ends when the United States invades a place, and they give instances which I don't want to mention. On the other hand, they say if the government of Nigeria is unable to sufficiently, I use those words carefully, sufficiently protect its citizens, that wherever help will come from is inconsequential. I do not know which part of the divide you're on, but there is one truth. We have a crisis on our hands. Nigerians don't feel safe as much as they should feel. And I always contextualize, is government doing something? Yes. Are they doing enough? Perhaps no. Which is why this argument will continue. Whether it's Muslims that are being killed, Christians that are being killed, our people are slaughtered unnecessarily by these cowards who go by the name of terrorists. And whatever has to be done to get them out of our spaces needs to be done. I think we can all agree on that. So that is still generating a lot of concern in the polity, with advisories, with objections, with support. And so we'll continue to trail that as much as possible. But for right now, let's tell you that the weekend, of course, I just started with that about the election that took place in Anambra State. And eventually, a winner has emerged. Professor Chukwuma Soludo of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA, which is a ruling party in the state, has retained his position as the governor of the state. 4 years ago, he sought for the job. Then yesterday, he was re-elected with what you call a landslide victory, with about over 70% of the vote cast going to APGA. Some of us were there to witness all that happened in Anambra State. But let's take a listen to when that announcement was made. And by the way, it's quite commendable how INEC has been able to do their work this time. And that has to do with the upload of the result of election, as at yesterday when we were on the program from Orca. Before 7 o'clock, over 94% or so of the election results from polling units have been uploaded on IREV. So we were estimating that this shouldn't take time to call. And by about 8:18 a.m. this morning, the final result was pronounced by the returning officer. But let's take a listen to the moment when Professor Chukwuma Soludo was announced as the winner of yesterday's governorship election by the returning officer of that exercise.
Tally for ADC is 8208. 8208. The tally for APC is 99445. Repeat, 99445. Tally for APGA. APGA is 422,664. Repeat that. 422,664. The tally for YPP is 37753. Tally for YPP is 37753. I, Professor Edova Bright Omoride, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Vice Chancellor of the University of Benin, hereby certify that I am the returning officer the 2025 Anambra State Governorship election held on the 8th day of November 2025. I also certified that the election was contested and that the winner emerged. The candidate with the highest number of votes cast and percentage have all been completed. I therefore declare that Soludo Charles Chukwuma of the APGA, I will satisfy the requirement of the law and score the highest number of votes in this election, is hereby declared the winner and returned elected.
So that was moments ago, about 8:17 a.m. this morning. It was one of the fastest elections to call in the governorship election in the off cycle. So that happened earlier. In fact, some people were still sleeping or had headed to church when that happened, when Chukwuma Soludo was announced the winner of that election. But let's tell you also that the president has reacted, congratulating the Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, on his victory at the polls, describing his re-election as an affirmation of his visionary leadership. The president, in a statement personally signed by him, says Professor Soludo's overwhelming victory in Saturday's poll has now made him the third governor in the state's political history to win a second term. The president, according to the president, Professor Soludo's re-election is a testament to his visionary leadership and significant progress the state has made under his guidance. The president's statement reads in part, "I commend Governor Soludo for bringing discipline, grace, brilliance, and a fresh perspective to governance in Anambra. Under him, Anambra is living up to his motto of the light of the nation." The victory of the opposition, All Progressive Grand Alliance, in the election again demonstrate the vitality of our political system and the fact that victory for any progressive and hardworking leader can hardly be encouraged or encumbered or denied. The president urges Governor Soludo to be magnanimous in victory and to seek cooperation of his opponents in the just concluded polls. Now, the reactions are not in short supply, and one is coming from one of the candidates of the election that took place yesterday, John Nwosu of the African Democratic Congress, rejecting the result of that election, citing alleged vote buying for his rejection. The ADC candidate says what took place on Saturday was a ruse and total subversion of the people's will, marred by massive vote buying and shameless financial inducement at polling units across the state. He also condemned what he describes as the failure of relevant institutions to safeguard the sanctity of the ballot.
Reflect the true position of our people, considering the level of poverty in Anambra State today. You know, somebody who has not eaten in the last 1 month, seeing 20,000 naira, we jump at it. So I just want to use this opportunity, you know, to call all the parties concerned to make sure that what has happened in Anambra State is stopped for the future of our democracy. Otherwise, we are joking. Because starting from day one, we saw the state intimidating the opposition by asking everybody to pay 50 million naira before you can advertise. Otherwise, you can't put up any billboard. There is ban on oppositions going into the market to campaign. It's only the incumbent governor that goes into the market, does anything. There were prevention of meetings of opposition. So there is a lot that needs to be changed for our democracy to thrive, honestly. But I pity the poor masses, because I believe what happened yesterday is never the will of the people. You know.
And that's the ADC governorship candidates in yesterday's election. They were, I think they came, let me look at that position again. Yes, they came fifth in that election. I'm going to be reading out perhaps some of the numbers we have before I get to the conversation. But let's also tell you that as far as this election is concerned, Soludo, the governor of the state who has now been redacted, has seen this as history made. Let's take a listen to what he said shortly after that announcement was made for his victory.
This is a moment to say congratulations to Anambra. You have spoken. 4 years ago, you spoke. You gave us your mandate. And then, of course, Anambra experimented the first time with beavers in that election. Extremely very low turnout. You elected us with 112,000 votes. In this one, you spoke loudly. This election and this victory is not just victory. It is history made. Big history. Because in the history of Anambra's politics, you look at the bit in terms of the percentage of registered voters that voted in this election, about 22%. Never before. You've broken the 20% glass ceiling, as it were. In terms of percentage of votes actually also made to any incumbent. This is the third time a governor has been elected, re-elected in Anambra's history since the beginning of this republic, since 1999. In 2010, you re-elected a governor with about 31% of the votes cast. In 2017, you re-elected a governor with 56% of the votes cast. In this one, you were very emphatic, very, very emphatic, by re-electing a governor. Yours sincerely, and my deputy, Dr. Onyeka Chukwuibezim, with 73% of the votes cast.
Well, we're on ground in Awka and the entire Anambra State. 21 local government areas of the state, over 300 wards, almost 6,000 polling units in the 3 senatorial districts of the state. And about 2.8 million people registered for that election, but about 2.7 collected PVC. Now, when politicians speak and the loser will say yes, the winner will say yes, for those of us who are multi-stakeholders, part of the multi-stakeholders ecosystem, we look at the process. And one of the things we notice is the voter turnout. Although it's a significant improvement from 2021, 2021, the voter turnout was as bad as just slightly about 10% of the voter turnout. Now, this last one is about 21%, so you can say it's about a 100% increase. But if you look at broadly, it's still a poor voter turnout. So we're talking about 2.7 million registered voters, a population of, say, 5 million, and then just about 500,000 people came out to vote, slightly over that, to decide who becomes the leader of their state. So this is a big challenge as far as voter apathy is concerned. But let's bring in one of the candidates from yesterday's election, the governorship candidate of the Labour Party, George Moghalu, who contested in that election yesterday, came like 4th position. Mr. Moghalu, thank you so much for coming on the program. If you can unmute your device, Mr. Moghalu, if you can hear me. Oh, dear.
Thank you very much, Justice, for having me. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Oh, fantastic. Thank you for coming on the program.
Oh, my device is not muted.
Yes, I can hear you now. Fantastic. Thank you. A quick one. Of course, there are so many comments that have come out from this particular election.
Thank you very much for having me, Jeffrey.
All right, fantastic. I get there's a slight delay, so I'll just throw in my question and allow you to speak. Let's get your quick reaction and assessment of yesterday's exercise before we get into some of the nitty-gritty.
Thank you very much again for having me. The truth about it is that the elections yesterday it's actually not a true reflection of the wish of Anambra, because a few things went wrong. The issue of vote buying, there was a major challenge. There are instances where you have voter intimidation, agents were brutalized. And then, I heard one of the candidates also say on TV, there are a few things that were done before the election that pointed us to where we are today. So the election, as far as I'm concerned, is not a true reflection of the wish of Anambra. The issue of vote buying is of great concern, because when I heard the number of policemen that have been deployed to monitor and manage this election, security-wise, I felt a little confident. But here we have a situation where all these policemen are littered around every polling unit, and then people who are buying votes, paying for it blatantly. It was a major challenge. And then I don't know where our democracy is heading to. It will be so monitored. Probably that may be the reason why our people are made to be poor, so that we can recognize poverty and then use it as an instrument in situations like this. So the election, as far as I'm concerned, is not what it should be. And my team across the state is going around and getting all the facts that we require to be able to deal with the issue. There are instances where result sheets are not available in polling units, and people are still made to vote. At the end of the day, you see results being thrown up. So there's quite a lot of issues that are visible in the course of this election that is of great concern, and which we consider a threat to our democracy.
All right, Mr. Moghalu. So two straight questions because of what I'm seeing as a communication challenge here. You've talked about, it's really interesting what's playing out. The governor laid allegation of vote buying. Ukachukwu Nicholas of the APC said there was vote buying. You are saying there was vote buying. Who is buying the vote?
That have been arrested who are wearing the tag of the government. Of the government party. No, let's put it that way. The party in government. Some of their agents are visible there. Some of them are on record as having been seen purchasing votes. Even there's a commissioner who is also on camera seen buying votes in my particular constituency. So there are many instances like that.
I understand that you lost your polling units. So confirm to us, did you lose your polling units, and was it as a result of vote buying?
Yes, because I couldn't afford how much that was being paid. I couldn't pay, and I refused to pay. I refused to get involved. So they had too much money to buy votes, and what do you expect my people to do? They fell because a lot of them are poor.
You know, Mr. Moghalu, it's now, so for context, so that I'll put it in proper perspective. You lost your polling units, and you came, I think, fourth in that election. Significant, distant fourth, I should put that, because the governor scored about maybe 400 and something thousand, 71% or 72 or 3% of the votes. Let's just say excess of 70% of the votes. And you scored about, I think, 10,000 of that particular vote. Is this a question of vote buying, or your political party and yourself did not build enough capacity to be able to run this race effectively? Internal crisis, being able to campaign effectively, to be able to win the hearts of the people, and even being able to win the hearts of the people at your polling unit, whether they were induced or not.
There are also cases of vote manipulation. Like I told you, there are instances and constituencies where result sheets were not available at the voting points. There are many instances. You know, there are instances that you find voting points that have no result sheets. What were the result sheets doing? And even INEC officials were on camera saying that they were waiting for the result sheets. Meanwhile, voting was taking place. And the information available to us was at the point where these result sheets were kept at bay, the results were being written to reflect the wish of those who are writing the results and not the wish of the people.
You know, I don't know. Maybe I ask two questions.
And in an instance like that, in a situation like that, you can put anybody, any figure you like, all in an attempt to pretend to have won.
Yes, Mr. Moghalu, we are aware. We know how the modern way of how elections are rigged. It's rigged around the numbers that should be on the PVC, because INEC is very clear. If it's in excess of 1, say if 500 persons are in that polling unit and the result is announced and it's 501 for whatever reason, that election is gone. That particular polling unit is gone. So we found that our politicians, what they now do, without mentioning anyone now, but what we've discovered is that they rig around the election, around the numbers that are safe within the BVAT, even in collaboration with the parties they want to influence. I'm going somewhere with that question. One of the things we also notice is that party agents, you literally are looking for, there are 16 political parties. I covered Ward 1 in Anambra, community primary school in Anambra, in Oka South. And it's 3 polling units. Over 3,000 persons were supposed to vote. Well, the number was, as at the time we were on that field, it was not encouraging in terms of turnout. But when the INEC official was asking for polling unit agents, you could barely see any, or just a handful. Isn't that part of the problem why political parties like yours and the rest lose election in the first place?
There is no doubt as to the fact that polling agents are of critical importance in any election. And that is why the INEC gives you an opportunity to upload these people before time. There are instances where even polling agents are compromised because they see the kind of money they've not seen before. And then you don't blame them because the entire process has been so monetized. So they see it as an opportunity to be paid. And if they have been paid enough money to guarantee their feeding for a period of time, and they are asked to get out of the polling points, why wouldn't they?
So are you in good conscience saying that, let's even admit, let's say if this election, are you saying that by your assessment, if everything was free and fair, you had a chance to win this election? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Moghalu, let's begin to custom because of the delays we're seeing. But let me find out from you, what is your next line of action? I asked that last question.
Yes, Geoffrey, I had a chance, a very big chance, yes.
Yes, I asked that question deliberately because if you choose to head to court, so question number 1, will you be heading to court? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what are you going to be presenting in court? Because if for you to be able to upturn an election where the margin of lead is worlds apart, 70% landslide, the evidence has to be heavy. Allow me to use that phrase. So are you heading to court? At least let me establish that in the first place.
The decision is not about me alone. We have a team, we work together. What we are doing now is to collect the evidences we have or the issues we have across the 326 electoral wards. And by the time we finish and look at the report of the 5,718 agents we sent on duty, by the time we finish collecting all this information, then the team will meet and then decide on our next line of action. It is not about me alone, it is about a team.
Okay. Mr. Moghalu, let's talk about the issue of voter apathy, which has been raised over and over, even with civil society organization and civil society situation room about the fact that although we have seen an improvement in the range of, we can say 100%, if we look at what happened in 2021, 10 as against, I think, 21 or 22% this time. So there's an upscale, there's an upswing in terms of the voter turnout, but it's significantly still low if you look at 20 as against 100%. What do you make of this development as far as elections are concerned, positing it with the Anambra State governorship election that ended yesterday or was rounded off today?
Oh, well, like you rightly observed, there's an improvement in voter turnout. If the figures that have been churned out is anything to go back.
Oh dear. It's okay. Today the technology has not been super supportive, but we'll go on a quick break. When we come back, maybe I will reel out the scorecard of all the performance of the 16 political parties and see how we can get a last word, possibly, or some series of thoughts from Mr. George Moghalu, who is the governorship candidate of the just concluded governorship election in Anambra State. Before we move on the program, but stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My guest, George Moghalu, is the Labour Party governorship candidate in yesterday's election in Anambra State. I want to take his last thought. Mr. Moghalu, if you can hear me, quick one. The governor has extended his hand of fellowship. Are you accepting? And what should we be expecting from you next? If you can do that in 1 minute.
No, I don't have any quarrel with the governor extending hands of fellowship, but the point is that the issues that are associated with the election has to be resolved. Once these issues are resolved, if it's in his favor, to God be the glory. If it's in my favor, to God be the glory. If it's in anybody else's favor, to God be the glory. But those issues have to be sorted out so that we can now decide on the next step to follow.
Okay, because he had talked about the fact that Anambra, when it comes to election, they fight hard. But after the election, your brothers should come together and you see what you can do to move the state forward. But there's one other issue now that I remember, the issue of ABGA being a legacy party in memory of Ojumeji Ojukwu, the Ikemba of Nnewi, who incidentally was born and passed on in the month of November. That cultural legacy is being seen also as a fundamental factor that helps ABGA, besides any other confluences that helps them in the victory for any election. So do you see any upsets for ABGA in the nearest future by any stretch of imagination?
No, Ojukwu, like you rightly observed, is an icon. He's a leader all of us revere. So certainly his name alone have some positive contribution he can make to our polity. That fact cannot be removed. Ojukwu is an icon, is somebody we all respect, somebody we adore, we like to be associated with. So it's a name we cannot ignore because it's a name that attracts a lot of sentimental attachment within the Igbo population. So for me, Ojukwu will always be Ojukwu for all of us.
All right, Mr. George Moghalu, thank you so much for coming on the program. I wish you the best of luck in whatever decision you make as far as your political ambition is concerned. George Moghalu, governorship candidate in the last election for the Labour Party. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey. I appreciate you.
Let's bring in our next guest. who was on ground to observe proceedings as far as that election was concerned. She's the program lead, Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Vanessa Gregory. Ms. Gregory, thank you so much for coming on the program. Ms. Vanessa, can you hear me? Ms. Vanessa, can you hear me? Oh, dear. What a wonderful day with technology. All right, while I'm trying to establish contact with Ms. Vanessa, let me bring you up to speed. Oh, fantastic. Thank goodness. Technology has been very unkind to us today. I believe you were on ground, at least you got information as to what played out around. I always like to ask from a general point of view, your own assessment of the exercise. You know, for the political class or the politician, outcome is their ultimate assessment. They win or they lose. But for others, it's the process itself. What do you make of the process?
So we were a group of local observers, domestic observers as we're called, on ground. We deployed 7 organizations with a total of 711 election observers. And when it comes to the process, I would say that, you know, we had observed that at over 50% of the polls, logistics was a problem. So materials did not arrive at 8:30, which is the stipulated time for materials to be on ground when it comes to INEX guidelines. You know, we also saw the deployment of security personnel, but we had observed polling units. Our observers reported polling units which did not have any security observed. You know, there was. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, where there was no security personnel. We have polling units where they reported roving security. When it comes to voter apathy, it was again something that is of a big concern, because 21% turnout, although higher than the last elections, for an election with for a state with over 2 million registered voters, to have 500 or so voters turn up to vote shows that citizens have really lost interest in the process. And one of the main things that we saw that was a recurring issue during the elections was the incidences of vote buying. You know, this was something that was constant. And as CSOs, we will say that this does mar the credibility of electoral processes. It also doesn't help in fair competition amongst political parties. You know, my organization, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund, is pretty much focused on the gender perspective of the elections. And we had an observer who came to us and did say to us that at one polling unit, because of the incidents of vote buying, it got a bit rowdy, and the women who had come out to exercise their franchise had to leave the polling unit for fear of their safety. So, you know, this is a serious, aside from the electoral process, this, influences citizens in various different ways. So, this is something that we need to call on political parties to look at and ensure that elections are conducted in a fair manner. You know, I just heard that, because the vote buying, it does not really help or aid the democratic process.
All right, because it's a very big concern. I don't know how much INEC can do, because from the records I have, I stand to be corrected, I know that relating to vote buying incidents, I think the EFCC had arrested about 3 persons with the polling unit or the center where I covered in Anambra. I know that I saw the presence of the EFCC, about 15 of them. Maybe they were doing their rounds and all of that. But it looks like this has become the norm. In your view, by your own assessment, what else can be done? Because if it's legislation is not in short supply in Nigeria, We have loads of it. Implementation is always the problem. But when this is becoming a bit of a culture that there's a lot of look away or minor incidents of arrest or prosecution not properly concluded as deterrent, what else is left on the table? Because it's important for us to poke this as quickly as possible so that people don't sell their future due to whatever amount that has been offered them by any of these political parties. As a matter of fact, the political parties are counter-alleging. They are the one committing the crime of vote buying, but they're also counter-alleging against each other.
So I think we need to employ a multi-pronged approach. So address various stakeholders. So we speak to the political parties, you know, and advocate for more campaigning based on issue-based campaigning, you know, and to refrain from inducing voters through different means, be it money or oil, rice. We saw a bunch of things on the field, you know. Also to appeal to the citizens, the electorate, the people who do come out and vote, to desist from taking these inducements by political parties. In Anambra, we did have a polling unit where vote buying was attempted by some party agents, but the people at the polling unit actually chased the agents away and insisted that they would vote in a way that they felt that they wanted to exercise their franchise, you know. And another thing we need to consider is accountability. You know, we always hear these stories of such and such numbers of people have been arrested for counts of various things, electoral offences. But do we follow through? Do we hear of the sentencing? Do they actually get sentenced? So what we need is a greater accountability system. So when you are accused of electoral malpractice, you should be arraigned and charged. The Electoral Act 2022, as amended, sets out the various punishments associated with the different electoral malpractices. So we need to follow through. And as CSOs, we need to push for this process and see that we hold the security agencies accountable for prosecuting these perpetrators. You know, it is not an INEC issue, because INEC is not a persecuted body. They're not a security agency. So although they can call people and name and shame, they're not able to impose these penalties, which is what we need to keep hammering on the security agencies to hold people accountable. Thank you.
Let's talk about security. It was seen to be generally peaceful with little or minor incident. I think apart from, I heard about someone was killed somewhere. I don't know whether it's related to the election. I need to confirm all of that. But how would you assess the security and their performance in this election?
So overall, I would say, as we have seen on the news and elsewhere, people who were on ground, it was a largely peaceful election. Voters conducted themselves in a peaceful manner. Security agents were able to manage the peace. Now, this is twofold. So we can say that the deployment of security was amazing, because majority of polling units recorded security agents present at their polling units. But then again, we need to look at the turnout. With over 2 million registered voters and only over 500 voters coming out, we could say it's largely peaceful because there weren't large crowds, there wasn't incitement, you know. So it's something that we have to keep on looking at and see how it goes in consequent elections.
Absolutely. We'll take a break. Ms. Vanessa will be coming back to continue the conversation. Right. In fact, 2.8 million people registered to vote. 2.7 actually collected their PVCs, and just slightly less than 600,000, 584,000 came out to vote. It's an abysmal number, even though it's an improvement from what played out in 2021. It's a big concern on our polity, and that's why we will continue to raise this concern. We'll be right back in just a moment. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. My guest, program lead, Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Vanessa Gregory, Just analyzing what played out in Anambra State yesterday, she was one of the observers, domestic observers in that election. Ms. Vanessa, thank you so much. Two more questions as we begin to wind down. Let's begin. I'm going to come to what you're really passionate about, which has to do with women. But the reason why I like to stay on the issue of voter apathy, because first, we're interested in the process and participation. First, there's a lot of cost on the state and wastage when people don't show up. Third, which is now a question, how does this impact popular appeal in terms of policy and legitimacy? Of course, is legally they've won the election, but when you have just a handful of people showing interest in who leads them, how does it affect government's performance in a state or in a nation?
So I think it's a thing of when people come together, democracy, we say it's for the people, of the people, the usual spiel. When a group of people come together to elect a leader, they're able to hold them accountable. With such a low voter turnout, it kind of shows that people are losing trust in the system. Citizens are unable to put their trust in democracy, which, further delegitimizes democracy and also speaks to the credibility of our electoral process. When we come to terms with the fact that such a low number of people came out in these elections in the just concluded Anambra elections to cast their vote, it means that, the governor, so to speak, is maybe not 70. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I thought I lost connection for a second. So it's just in a nutshell, it just reduces the credibility of elections, the credibility of governance going forward. It makes us think to what the future will look like. Yes, although we've seen a quote-unquote 100% increase in the turnouts, we look to the future. We want to see what the turnout will be. And, a lot of polling units that were observed, we saw that it was the older generation who was out there casting their votes. You have the youth so disinterested in the electoral process, and they are the future of the nation. So if they're so disinterested in the future of the nation, it begs the question, where do we go from here? And we need to put this to the leadership to come out and say, what, these are the things that we're going to do to build trust back in the electoral process, to build trust back in the governance system of the country. Because if we continue on this trajectory, these trends will they consistently show a decline in participation. And, what is democracy if no one shows up to cast their votes for the different candidates?
All right, fantastic. So let's wind down with, I tried to do a tally of the numbers. 584,054 votes were the valid votes cast, and then the governor won with 422,000 votes. There were two female contenders of the AAC and NRM. They scored 292 and 36. So cumulatively, the two ladies in this contest scored less than 400. Does this say anything to you as to the reception of females in political leadership at that level?
Yes, so, it says a lot, clearly. Just reading out the numbers, the two women together polled less than 1% of the total votes cast in that election, And so it makes us sit back and think. We had two female governorship candidates and 6 deputy governorship candidates in the election. And again, none of the big four, so to speak, fielded a female frontrunner. So we have more inclusivity from the smaller parties, but then that makes us have to think about this, how we strategize going forward. It's more advocacy, it's quotas in political parties. It's giving gender balanced media coverage. It's allowing the women to share their perspectives, their mandates, but on the parts of the women, it's also, we commend them for being bold enough to be the front runners in these elections, but we also need them to, take the bull by the horn, so to speak, seek that media coverage, come out, campaign. We need to urge the security agencies to protect these women during campaigns. We need to, again, back to accountability when there is slander or, online gender-based abuse, electoral gender-based abuse. We need the security agencies to be able to stand up and protect these women. So again, a multi-stakeholder approach. We need all hands on deck, and this is just the start. We'll keep moving on from here, amending and re-amending the role until we see more females elected.
We're hopeful that someday this is going to change. Actually, the data shows that 0.1% is what they scored in this entire election as far as the women who are frontliners are concerned. Vanessa Gregory is the program lead at Nigerian Women Trust Fund. Thank you so much for coming through at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. Wishing you a very beautiful week ahead. I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Good night.
Malaria is gone. What is wrong with my husband?
Ma, he was very sick. This is a lab result.
Thank you, Luther. With Luther, malaria is in big trouble.
Luther contains artemether and lumefantrine, and it is used to treat malaria.
Luther is another quality product from Hovid and marketed by Pharmatex Nigeria Limited.